Here's an interesting old record player. It's an Optonica RP-7100, and it's enables you to choose what track you want on the record. Now this one's not working, so I got it cheap. It's got an actual glass lid rather than perspex. Inside the cartridge and head assembly is missing, but the tracking device arm that measures the tracks is there. The weight from the back is luckily was not lost. Goes on there. Nothing seems to be broken, though whether it works or not is another thing, and it needs cleaning up. It's interesting that these little shaped buttons on the Optonica are the same as that they put on their other equipment. Here's a cassette deck. It's got the same shaped buttons. Also an Optonica. So I'm going to clean it up, test it out. I mean, it's very complex. You can get the service info online. It's very, very complex. There's a lot of electronics in it. So if it's not working, it's going to be difficult to fix. So hopefully it's fairly straightforward. It takes a standard fit-in cartridge, so I've got one of them. And the setup information's all available online. How to set up the cartridge weights and everything, and the position of the sensor arm and adjustments. So I'll clean it up. These pitch knobs don't turn for some reason. They're either seized or have never been turned since it was made. First thing to do is to take this rather nice glass lid off. It doesn't actually fit properly, so the hinges have probably been twisted a bit, but I should be able to sort all that out. After checking the mains plug was wired properly, I plugged it in and turned it on. It's making a horrible whirring sound from inside, and the speed is way off, and these knobs, which are virtually impossible to turn, make no difference to the speed, which is completely out. So the arm movement works though, which is good. And when it stops, the noise goes away. We've still got the clip on here, so that hasn't been broken off, also good. This moves freely, so there's obviously something wrong with the motor drive circuit, so I have to have a look at it. We can take the sort of plastic cover off the bottom of this thing. It's just held on by a load of screws, and then you can take the screws out on the back of the front panel here, and it's a nice heavy duty piece of aluminium. Then you can clean it, take all the buttons out using some natural clean, wet wipe sort of thing, fragrance free, natural one. You can clean this off, it doesn't take the letterings off. Clean the mirror, clean the glass mirror in there as well. Clean all the things like this. Now these pots were completely seized, but by using some contact cleaner and squirting it down, it will penetrate in the shaft, and keep turning it. I freed them up. It was just the grease that's completely made them solid. Now they turn. And while you're at it, you can put some cleaner on some of these switches too, which like that. And it's just a matter of cleaning going to clean up the rest of the front panel, get the dirt off of it along here. These are all the LEDs and everything. When you put the this back on, some of these plastic inserts fall out where the glue has gone hard, and if you're not, they fall out. So be careful with these, because they're all glued in. Just clean it back, and then I can put this back on and back on here, and then I'll turn it over again and have a look at the electronics inside. Okay, there's a big problem with this deck, getting it to run at 45 RPM. It's way out, and adjusting the knob here makes no difference, and the quartz lock is not working either. Now looking at the pulse here, as they tell you to look on the circuit, it says it's 44.634 Hertz. It says you have to adjust it to 44.44. It's slightly, you adjust it by, there's a little capacitor on this frequency generator, crystal capacitor. I've tried turning that, it makes no difference, so I don't know why not. By the way, this is hell to work on. You to work underneath, everything is under there. I don't know how else you're supposed to work on it, because if you turn it upside down, it doesn't work at all. There's another fault with this. This AP automatic program search thing doesn't work either, and it doesn't return when it gets to the middle. Hopefully that's a separate problem to this 45 speed thing. If I change the speed on top here, it's that one I think. It changes to 60.256, should be 60 Hertz on the 45 RPM one. So it is changing speed, but the deck is not going around at the right speed. So there's lots of info on how it all works, and we'll have to work out what's out. There's, as I say, it's very hard to adjust all the controls underneath it when you're upside down. I found that if you there's two little pots here that are set in this center position. If I press the 45 one, it goes steady, and then if I don't know, is that showing up? If I take the, I'm just pressing it, if I take it off, it goes. So it looks like there's a bad contact on that little potentiometer just there. I'm going to have to clean it and or see what's the matter with it. Okay, on the back of that little potentiometer in there, it had, the track had broken, and it pushed the leg had pushed the track off. So I took that out and re-soldered it back on. So now you've got the 45 is now working, and the 33. I can't see if that's showing up or not. 33 and the 45. I'm pressing this. But the quartz lock isn't working. If you press the quartz lock, it goes out on both. So I've now got to find out why that's not working. I finally managed to sort the speed out on this, both on the with and without the quartz lock, by adjusting the potentiometers, the little presets under there. But mainly for the quartz lock, you have to adjust two pots on here, the VR5, VR6, one for 33, one for 45. They're situated on a board, one of the circuit boards, VR5, VR6, they're there, two blue pots, which are quite difficult to get at. They're right on one of the circuit boards. Down there, they're blue, so you have to get a screwdriver, this one, up on the pot and twiddle it, and eventually you can set the speed correctly on the strobe when you're running width, and then when you adjust the knob here, you can adjust it. As you can see, it's moving. Move it one way and the other way with the adjusting, and you can set it so it's pretty stationary, and then you hit the quartz lock and it holds it dead steady. Now when you do the 45 RPM one, it speeds up. You can again adjust this left and right, and when it's about correct, you hit the quartz lock and it locks it in. Okay, that's all done by fiddling with the little pots under there and the two on the circuit board. Next big problem is getting the this APLD to work. It's not working properly. There's various adjustments for the sensitivity of this sensor here and the position of it. It will kind of work, but sometimes it won't pick up at the end of the record, all sorts of things. So I've got to look at that next. Then you can cue it. It raises the arm up. You can move, as soon as you move it off, it starts the deck up. And that's for manual positioning. Cue it back down. I haven't got the hi-fi on it, so you can see it's playing. The problem is when it gets to the end of the record, it's it accelerates. As it accelerates, it changes. It triggers the electronic circuitry and it picks up. But unfortunately, with a very small run-out groove, it's just getting stuck. I'll just show you that. Let's cue it up. When you move it in, oh, there it goes. Because I was moving it quickly, it accelerated. So it's quite, the sensitivity is all wrong. That can be adjusted on this circuit down here. There's some adjustments. There's the sensor for the positioning of the pickup, and it's got a couple of adjustable pots. Hopefully that'll do it. Now, setting this up, putting the cartridge in, all the normal things with this arm, you balance it out, and then it's got a little calibrated weight thing you turn. Anti-skating here. I found the anti-skating thing seems to be way out. Doesn't produce enough anti-skating, so I've got it turned up pretty high. I found when it was supposed to be set on the same scale as the tracking weight, I found it was not good enough, so I've turned it up. Anyway, adjusting the pickup sensor in the head. Normally this arm should be parallel to this one. I don't know how it could get bent, maybe if someone fell on it or something. There are some screws in the back where you can adjust it, but and also the end here you can twist it by hand. It's sort of a press fit. And it's got a screw for screwing it in and out for alignment. And it's when it's above the record, it should be a fixed height. They tell you in the instructions it should be 3 to 4.5 millimeters. It's quite hard to measure, but I checked it. It looks about 3 mil. It just clears. Now, first thing you have to do with this deck is, if you've got to set it up at all, is get to the electronics underneath. Now this is a bit hard because they're all screwed into the bottom and all the controls face downwards. You can't turn the deck upside down and operate it. And if you take the platter off and turn it upside down and try and operate it, the DC direct drive motor doesn't work properly. Anyway, I don't know how they do it in the factory, but I assume they have it raised up on some sort of rack so that they can adjust it. Anyway, I put it on a couple of boxes, taking the bottom off obviously. And another thing before you set it up, make sure it is level. You use a bubble and get it level front and back, otherwise nothing's going to probably work properly. Now there's a couple of you can get the service manual, which tells you various things, and one of them is set in the stylus point. It says the automatic play-in won't function correctly in this, that's set. They say 50mm, that's very short. Some of my cartridge won't move back that far. Anyway, you don't even have to measure it really, because this this little thing here, which I believe normally held a brush, that hole in the middle is exactly, gives you 50mm when the cartridge is fitted properly. So all you have to do is adjust the cartridge so that the stylus needle point would fit directly in the middle of that. So that's all straightforward. Now the various setups, that's for that. Online you can get a lot of stuff, and it's very complicated for adjusting everything. For instance, you need an oscilloscope to do these waveforms, and there's lots of stuff here about checking voltages and unplugging things. Complete nightmare. I tried it that way and it's impossible to set it properly. But what I did find is that you can adjust the pots manually and get it pretty well set up bit by bit, just by trial and error, and it gave a much better result than trying to use the scopes. You've got instruction layout of the circuit boards with the various potentiometers where they are. And then if you understand the circuit diagrams, you can print this out, and you can see where the potentiometers are and what they're doing, the various ones around, and there's two over here as well. Now and you do it step by step. The first thing you want to do is set up the sensitivity. Actually, the first thing you can do is set the speed. Now the speed control ones are over here. There's one there, and there's one down here. They call 3. Now the speed on here, this has got quartz lock, which is good, and you can turn the quartz lock off. And you've got pots here. They were completely seized on this. I had to get some anti-seize lube in there, and this little board, by the way, comes out. In fact, I took the whole front panel out and cleaned it. And on here you've got 2 pots here, which is shown on the circuit diagram here, and you've got 2 presets as well, so you can set the center points of these, and they are accessible just here. 1 and 2 each for the speed, so they're nice and easy. So you need a screwdriver like this. If it's dark, use a torch to see what you're doing, and you can adjust the speed with those to get these on the center point. So let's just cue this up. Now there's the 33 one going round. When this first came, it was way off, and one of these pots, the leg on the circuit board wasn't soldered. It was kind of broken off, and no wonder it wouldn't work properly. Anyway, they were way off, and also the 45 one was way off. Now it's quite close. So you adjust the knob here, so get the speed left or right, and you can get it in the middle, and when it's close enough you can press this quartz one, it locks it in. Now that didn't work either. When you press the quartz one, it went flying off at a different speed. Now on the circuit diagram, the quartz one's lock is on these pots here, 5 and 6. So what you do is, after setting up the speed normally, you switch it to quartz, and you find the correct one, VR6 for 45 and VR5 33, You can look on the layout to find where they are. VR 5 and 6 are I think they're those. Are they those? I can't read up. Anyway, they're on the drawing. You can find out where they are. It says 2, 3, 4. I think they're 5 and 6. So, and you find out where they are underneath. There's a couple here at the front, and a couple way back over there. So you have to be a bit careful or turn it round. And what you do is you set the quartz one on, and when it was off, you just get your screwdriver and adjust it until it suddenly locks in. It's much easier to do that than try and do all this stuff with a scope and everything. And you do it with the other speed as well. You get it set on there, and then you hit the quartz, and if this is jumping all over the place, you adjust that potentiometer. So that was the speed done. Now the next thing to do is set the sensitivity, and of course we assume, luckily all the controls work. If they didn't work, that would be a nightmare. Now the sensitivity of this, there are two adjustments on the circuit here. Where are they now? Sensitivity. Oh, it's on the other drawing. Here we are. Here's the pickup. There's a light and a pickup, and here's the amplifier for the sensitivity thing, which goes to all this logic here. There's two pots here. One is for the initial point where it's going to start working when it first track on the record, and this one is for detecting the grooves in between the records. So you find those two pots. I think it's 201 and 202 on your layout. Here they are. They're on this circuit board now, so you've got to find out where they are and which one's which. You find it underneath and carefully use your screwdriver. Obviously, if you're using a metal screwdriver, just don't keep jabbing it in everywhere. And you can adjust it backwards and forwards, which I have, and it either works or doesn't work, and you can get it very close, and you can just ease it one way or the other until it works correctly. I must say it's very, very sensitive, and it seems to vary between records. Anyway, let's try it now. Press play. After adjusting it for the set down, I've got that in. That's pretty good. If it sets down slightly out, you wind this backwards and forwards. Now, for detecting the tracks, let's just lift that up with, oh, send it back. For detecting the tracks is the other pot, and you can wind it backwards and forwards to get the sensitivity just right. Now these controls here, this isn't the track number, it's not one of those that scans it and then programs it. This is actually a skip, how many tracks are skipped. Skip to the next track, skip 2 tracks ahead, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. So, for instance, if you want to play the second track, you can press that and press play. Now it should miss the first one and drop into the second one, which it has. That was quite close. And now to skip forward another track, press that number 1. Now because the grooves are so close together, it's really hard to get it to land dead in the center, but it's pretty close. And skip forward another one. You can fiddle around. Whoops, there wasn't another one. So it went in and it's come back now. Okay, so now that end of track position, there's two settings for that, and one's mechanical and one is electronic. Now the mechanical one is there's a cam underneath here which moves with the arm, and there's a light shines across to a pickup, and it's shown on this drawing here. There's a light and a pickup. Now what happens as the record moves across, eventually the cam interrupts the light, and that is when it will pick up at the end of the record. That's adjusted through a hole underneath here, and only when the thing's at rest, there's a hole with, if you had a light you could see it, and a big screw which turns the cam backwards and forwards. If you keep turning it, the cam goes all the way around, so you have to be careful. And you can adjust that. Now that is then you have this other piece of electronics here. This is detects the acceleration of the cartridge when it gets to the end, as it accelerates across the grooves, and it will pick up also when it does that, rather than get to the end stop. There are two adjustments on here as well. One is a kind of when it starts to operate, and the other is this kind of a speed of operation. It then sends a signal out of that connection. It ends up coming in down here somewhere into this circuit. Anyway, it's a lot easier to do it bit by bit than to try and do these sort of things, measuring these waveforms, which are very. I tried, and the instructions are not that clear. Anyway, it seems to work now. You can fiddle with the positioning of this. You just turn that screw to try and get it to land dead on the groove. So let's skip. There aren't that many tracks on here. 1, 2. We can only skip 2 really. Let's try 3. It's also got a repeat, which you can repeat the whole record if you want. That's 1, 2, 3. That's pretty much on the groove. As I say, there's a tiny bit of. You can lift the arm, and you can move it manually if you want, to whatever position you want. You can't really see any better than using on any other record player where it is, and then you can lower it down. You probably can't get it in the right place either. There's a repeat, and the cut stops it, right? We press the repeat and it should repeat. Here it goes. So it's working pretty good now. Speed stable. Does 45s as well. And 10 inches, which I'll put one on and show you in a minute. So now let's lift that up. So now it's all working, and you can cut back. It's got a arm clip. I don't know how useful it is. It was something the Japanese thought up, that to try and keep up with technology and CDs when they came out. It's quite a good record player. It's got very low rumble, very good wow and flutter figures, and frequency stabilization and everything. And though I don't know how many people use these, but just for the quartz lock speed. And the arm looks heavy, but it is very free. As I say, if you set the tracking to 0, it will, and then you can tilt. If you just slightly tilt this that way so that it's going forward, and you can adjust this just to stop the arm swinging in, and get your own idea of how much anti-skating you want to use. Everything else seems to be working fine. The lid's polished. Is a nice bit of glass. I'm not quite sure where it is. Oh yes, down here. Bit of tinted. That's actual glass. That's cleaned up really nice. There's no scratches. Like most Perspex covers get really badly scratched. The rest of this thing, it's not a great looking. It's a bit of like a sink bowl. It's a bit odd, but the spec's good. So I hope that helps anyone else who wants to fix it. By the way, most of these things, the electronic components rarely go wrong. I see lots of YouTube things about people changing components all over the place. Transistors because they got black legs, and capacitors and that. I find that this is from about 1981. All the components look fine. Yeah, the transistors have black legs, but that corrosion doesn't extend into the little silicon chip inside, and it doesn't affect it. Very few things burn out on these unless someone's messed with them. You can get, I've had problems with relays. There's no relays in here which you might need cleaning. Micro switches, there's a lot of micro switches, they don't normally play up at all. Grease gets hard. The grease on most of these things, the grease on this one, there's not much of it and it hadn't gone hard. You can take the direct drive spindle out, and it's normally on a little ball bearing. Check the grease is nice and good, which it was. The motors, I've never seen a motor go. It's quite sophisticated. Chips here for the frequency. There's a crystal there. I've seen people change them. I haven't seen any problem with that. Tiny capacitors, variable capacitors. That is for setting the frequency so that it divides down correctly. There are FETs. ICs all over the place. Transistors, diodes. Power supply, all the caps, capacitors, people say they should be changed, but I've never seen any problem with capacitors. They don't dry out. Tantalums, they don't tend to use many tantalums. Some people say tantalums can go, but most of the problems are not electronic. They're normally, in this case, all the adjustments were out for some reason, and there was a bad connection on the potentiometer. It might have got bent when it was installed, I don't know. So don't go changing all the electronic parts just unless they look like something's gone wrong. So very complicated, but I've got it working now. Good luck to anyone else. Having to work from underneath is a real pain. Be careful you don't electrocute yourself. I really need a plastic adjusting screwdriver. Use a torch, as I say, and just be careful that you know exactly which pot you're adjusting. Luckily these manuals are available. If they weren't, it would be virtually impossible to do these things. It shows you can work out the colour of the wires. In fact, the colours of the wires on here weren't correct. There was a couple of mistakes. You can work out where the pots are. 201, 202 right in the corner of that board there. In fact, they're they're really easy ones. They're just right here, right at the front to get to. Ones at the back are a nightmare, unless you turn the unit round and work the other way around. There's quite a lot of gears and sophisticated little cams and things on there, but they're all good quality. No wear or tear or anything. Looks like it's gonna break off. If you're going to play your 45 singles on this deck, it's slightly sensitive, even more sensitive to the set down and pickup on a single. There's only normally one track, and the pickup at the end is more sensitive. There's normally not much run out, and it works by measuring the acceleration of the arm. Now on here, as I said before, there's a circuit here which has an offset and a gain, which sends a signal to pick the arm up. Now those two pots there are shown here on this little circuit board, which are on a little circuit board just here. There's two pots. They're quite easy to get to. They're near the front. Now one adjusts, but they both adjust the sensitivity of the pickup, and you have to fiddle around with it a bit to get it to pick up just right, otherwise it won't pick up, or it picks up while the record's still playing. The set down can be a little temperamental as well. Sometimes it sets down on the record, sometimes it doesn't. So I suggest that you either cue it up by hand if you're playing a single, or at least press track number 1. Normally means it gets there rather than setting down on the turntable mat. Let's give it a go. Set to 45 obviously. So it sets down nicely and plays good. And then when it gets to the end, I'll just cue this up a bit so we don't have to play the whole record. Now it measures the acceleration, so I'll have to be not push this too fast, or so it's just coming to the end of the single now, and I've adjusted the sensitivity so it picks up the arm on when it gets to the run out. There it goes, and I've also set it to repeat, and hopefully it's set down on the single. So I don't suggest you leave your singles playing on automatic, because sometimes it sets it down on the turntable mat when you don't want to do that. Here's a 10-inch record, Norah Jones. It's a 33. Some of these are 45s, but you have to decide yourself. So I switched that to 33, and it should play it, detecting the groove. And then we can, if you want to skip to another track, 1 forward. And if you skip it forward again, it will set at the end of that track. And then it's auto comes back. Deck's finished, put back together, all cleaned up, it's looking really nice and shiny. One of these rubber rests was missing, so I've stuck another one on. Put a record on, play a little bit of it for you. Let's play Spray. Quartz lock's fine. Gets on the record in the right place. That's a live record. ZZ Top. Anyway, I'll show you can jump forward 2 tracks.
Tonight's a big birthday night.
Again, it's live, so let's jump forward another track. So everything's working fine. Quite a bit of work to get out to work properly, but it's not a bad looking deck with the glass top. And then you can repeat if you want. Let's press the repeat button. So it's all looking good. Got long lead in on that. So, press cut. Can't play music on YouTube. There you go, it's got a clip. It's finished.